What is good? Chev, Jeremiah.
What just happened here? That was really aggressive.
We got a fresh crack, Chev.
All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it too now. What is good?
It felt good, didn't it?
That was special. I'm not gonna lie. Now I understand it. I understand it now. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
That's like Vince McMahon. That was special. So Casey's not here today. It's Coach. It's Chev. We're here to run down the AFC West, and let's just get right to it in order of how they finished last year, and then we got our tiers that we're going to break down. And we have the Denver Broncos, 14-3 record last year. Chev, Vegas over under total is 9.5. So you're thinking that's a playoff team, and then players added, players lost. They've got Jonah Coleman coming in, Justin Jolie, tight end behind Evan Ingram. And then, of course, the Jaylen Waddle trade, where it was the first and the third and then the fourth pick swap. A lot of investment by the Denver Broncos to acquire Jaylen Waddle. So, Chev, why don't you break down, tell us about, you got Sean Payton, Davis Webb, the tendencies of how the Broncos are going to go at things.
Dude, okay. So this is the most interesting thing. So this was one of the ones that it's the Sean Payton system. You're going to target running backs quite a bit, almost at a league high rate, and you're going to run the piss out of the football. So looking at what my adjusted projection is for them, I've got them at 595 attempts, basically 4,200 passing yards, 30 passing touchdowns, and 2,000 rushing yards and 19 rushing touchdowns. So 1,020 plays. It's fifth. And essentially what we're looking at here with the Broncos is just them bludgeoning you with volume and consistently just taking the easy route in terms of, hey, I'm going to get it to a really good athlete. And this is why I can no longer be a Jaylen Waddle denier. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here in talking about how I had to have a come to Jesus moment or come to whoever moment, for those of you who aren't, whatever. But anyway, I'm no longer a Jaylen Waddle denier because there couldn't be a more perfect fit. I still think Courtland Sutton is massively, drastically underpriced. But this offense, if everybody's healthy, I feel like this is a lock for top 5 offense. I mean, just right now, I've got Courtland Sutton pretty much with 21%, almost 22% target share. Jaylen Waddle's at 21%. And then it kind of trickles down from there. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. And the big thing here is Davis Webb was able to be retained by the Broncos because Sean Payton was willing to give up play calling duties. So we're going to get to see, it's new, but it's not new, but it's the new hotness because Davis Webb is now going to be calling plays. I'm sure that if it doesn't go well, he's going to pull, Sean Payton's going to pull a Dan Campbell, Motor City Dan Campbell, and take over and take his headset back. But I feel like this is going to go pretty well. Davis Webb, former New York Giant, played in the NFL for a while, really young coordinator, supposed to be the new hotness. So we'll see.
Well, it's like you're playing video games and it's like, hey, pass the sticks. Give me the opportunity to make the play calls. And you make a salient point about the continuity that's there for the Denver Broncos. They're knocking on the door to be Super Bowl contenders. And between them and the Buffalo Bills, I feel like it's going to show this season, the Broncos were willing to make the move that the Bills weren't. Go and give up a first-round pick for Jaylen Waddle. Damn the rival. Get the talent. Get the better player. Imagine Josh Allen with Jaylen Waddle, and there was like a Fear Street element for the Buffalo Bills. So I love what you said about the Broncos. I'm very happy to hear about you being in on Jaylen Waddle. I've been in on him. Actually, last year he was a buy for me because I was premonitioning. We had a show on another network where he was a buy last year. And I thought, hey, this is going to show to fruition, but with the Dolphins. but I could not have foreseen this happening where it's the Broncos. And then there's that investment, Chev, where that's where teams don't lie. And that's what you got to go to. I'm loving it. So great call on Jaylen Waddle and Cortland Sutton, not to be forgotten. RJ Harvey, 4 of the last 5 games last year, anywhere between 18 to 23 fantasy points per game. But some of that goes back in the bottle with J.K. Dobbins and Jonah Coleman. So what's your outlook on the backfield for the Broncos next year?
As long as J.K. Dobbins is healthy, he's going to handle the lion's share of the dirty work, the low red zone carries inside the 5 carries. Right now, I think I have him projected for 8 rushing touchdowns. We're going to assume that we get full healthy J.K. Dobbins, or like I'm going to project that we get 15 games of J.K. Dobbins this year. That's the best I could do right now. So 8 rushing touchdowns is where we landed. He's going to handle most of that early down work. People forget that he was fifth in the league in rushing before the injury, 772 yards, averaging 5.1 yards a carry. And RJ Harvey was essentially an afterthought. He's still like 9 points a game, but J.K. Dobbins was the steal of drafts and scoring points all left, right, and center. And we were all just like, all right, we just have to, unfortunately, we just have to wait for something unfortunate to happen to him, in which case he got hip drop tackled, was out for the rest of the season. And I think that as long as he's healthy, he's the most mispriced asset. I'm looking at, I would guess, just without looking at the ADP, which I'm going to pull up, he's probably 11th or 12th round. It's like nobody wants any piece of J.K. Dobbins whatsoever. So RB 51 in the consensus rankings right now, or in the expert rankings right now.
Yeah, so that's an absolute climb. And I got to say, I'm a huge Jonah Coleman person, 35% rostership in the underdog best ball streets. But then also when we're talking Dynasty, we're in a Devi startup, Chev. I was able to get Jonah Coleman. I admit, as much as I love Jonah Coleman, I am wish casting, I am want casting to a large degree Jonah Coleman for 2026. Now, beyond, I'm very excited. I'm glad I have him, but I cannot guarantee, because you spoke to, there would have to be somewhat of that misfortune, which has occurred. J.K. Dobbins talks about, oh, it's just a fluke here, a fluke there. There's been a lot of flukes happening to J.K. Dobbins, but we wish him health. We know it's going to run through him. So you make the right point where it is an afterthought, RJ Harvey to J.K. Dobbins. Jonah Coleman, it'll be the same thing. So the focus, you should take the veteran early, at least early in the season, lean on J.K. Dobbins. You want those early weeks if you need to sell in Dynasty. I think maybe after September, if you're feeling a little bit shaky and reticent, like, hey, this is going to blow up, it's going to go bad, because it has in the past. But so long as J.K. Dobbins is playing, he's going to be all right. He's going to be awesome for your teams. Now, speaking of all right, awesome for your teams, the Los Angeles Chargers, we have talked so much. We had an individual show for the entirety of that offense. They're the new craze, the hot craze in fantasy football. People are on them. It doesn't mean that it's somehow square because so many people are on them. They could just be amazing, because I know you'll talk about Mike McDaniel, but let's revisit. Chargers last year, 11-6. Vegas has them 9.5 over under. So again, projecting, that's playoff ability. Vacated air yards, 1,132 in that offense. Vacated targets, 157. Vacated carries, 32. So who has shown up? Charlie Kohler, right? The guy who's going to nuke Oronde Gadsden. Keaton Mitchell, where there were those wanted posters from Mike McDaniel. the Devon Achane light, right? Alec Ingold at fullback. And then David Njoku. Hey, the Chargers brought in 2 tight ends to compete with Oronde Gadsden. They lose Tyler Conklin, and they going through nothing real fantasy-wise in the draft, shy of somebody you love, Brennan Thompson. So tell us, Chev, in the AFC West here, the Chargers, you got Jimothy Harbaugh, Mike McDaniel. How's it going to break down?
Well, I mean, are we talking about their pants selections? Like I've got Mike McDaniel wearing powder blue capri pants every week, and then I've got just traditional old school missionary khakis for Mr. Khakis Harbaugh, Jimothy, as you refer to him.
What is good? We're back with our new sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks, America's #1 sports pick app. The app is really easy to use. For player picks, just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Rather just pick teams? PrizePicks has that too. Just pick the winner, spread, or total on any game or fight. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. I know it's available in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where we are. So check your state and download the app PrizePicks. New users, play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups instantly if you win your first lineup. Just use promo code HMA and sign up. That's right. PrizePicks just switched up their offer. So there's no better time to join, lock in, and win that first lineup. That code again, HMA, sign up, get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. All right, so our lineup tonight, we're back on the baseball diamond, and we've locked in the more with a couple hitters here. We were off the rip. We went with Corbin Carroll facing off against the Pirates. We went more than 0.5 hits for him. Then we shifted our attention to the Jays versus the Nats with more on 2 sluggers there. So we went more than 0.5 hits for James Wood and Vlad Guerrero Jr. Used to love the OG Vlad Guerrero, so you got to sprinkle a little something on his boy there. Yeah, guys, it's that simple. It's that easy. And when you're using the new codes, you can use the power play or you can use the flex play, and that's still eligible for your first $5 lineup to win that $150. So go ahead and download the app, use promo code HMA, and thank me later. Peace.
The thing with this offense is we think that this has been a Ferrari under the carport meme with all the weapons. So bringing Mike McDaniel in, you have a guy who's got a history of coaching elite receivers. I mean, he broke into the league coaching Andre Johnson, and that's kind of where he started to make his bones. And you've seen the clips of him talking to Quentin Johnston about the details of the position. And hey, I want you to focus on this, and then what will come from this is this. So the one thing that we know is Mike McDaniel's a phenomenal teacher. The underrated aspect of all of this, I feel like I've veered off of what your actual question was, but we're going to stay with it. So the beautiful thing about this is his offenses have, when they work well and they function at a high level, when they have a quarterback who's not shell-shocked, they're 4th or 5th in the league in YAC. So those prime Miami Dolphins years. And now it's just been waiting for an innovative mind to come in. And I think they're going to be at about 58 to 64% 11 personnel. I think that's what I have them at. And then, outside of that, a whole bunch of 12 personnel. So we're going to get I think what we get here is we're going to get Oronde Gadsden operating potentially as the big slot. You've got Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston on the outside potentially. I don't know if we'll talk about where you think they land as far as signing a vet. I know me, you, and Pete had Peter. It's such a weird.
Hey, podcast Pete for the unaffiliated.
That's right, podcast Pete. He's on a Wednesday live. So the 12 personnel. I think this is just going to be really, really good for all parties involved. And the biggest takeaway from this is they're going to play with pace. They're going to give their athletes a unique opportunity in terms of personnel groupings and their ability, like accentuating their abilities to do things cool with the football. So by Justin Herbert is the overall takeaway. But I think McDaniel brings an element of just, I'm going to fit the puzzle to what you do well. I'm not going to make you fit into the puzzle. And that's what kind of excites me about this offense.
Hey, ancillary parts. I was on another show talking about the rise of Zay Flowers and how much Elijah Surratt and Jacoby Lane are actually going to help somebody like Zay Flowers. And this is a real NFL take. This is real NFL stuff, not just ancillary, hey, focus, narrow. This player, Ladd McConkey, this player, Quentin Johnston, is on my fantasy team. And you don't think of anything else teammate-wise, NFL-wise, team-wise. Brendan Thompson is going to stretch defenses. Keaton Mitchell is going to be a threat to keep people off balance. Main message there by Justin Herbert. But it's going to help everyone. It's going to help Oronde Gadsden. It's going to help Ladd McConkey. You spoke to it before where Ladd McConkey has talked about Justin Herbert based on where the ball is placed. that's where Ladd McConkey knows the defender is. So you're only going to buoy that with somebody like Mike McDaniel. And if Tua can throw 4,700 passing yards, you're telling me that Justin Herbert isn't going to be a threat to throw 5,000 passing yards this season? So again, it just points back to that. And we know Quentin Johnston, the first month, all right, last season, 25 points, 16, 15, 23.8, hot out of the gate, first month. And Mike McDaniel has talked about getting all the receivers, that includes tight ends, to get to their career highs. Quentin Johnston presents a tremendous value. We are Trey Harris truthers, but we have to understand that just like J.K. Dobbins in front of Jonah Coleman, you have Quentin Johnston ahead of Trey Harris. Now, Chev, you had kind of teased it. Are you trying to angle towards Keenan Allen spoiling part of this party? Do you think somebody ends up signing with the Chargers?
Dude, I am hoping against hope that we just get to run out with what exactly they have out there right now, and that they feel like they have enough, because to me, all of the pieces are there for them to be an elite offense. Obviously, Keenan Allen provides familiarity, comfort, and stability for Justin Herbert. We saw that. Excuse me. He was at a higher targets per route run than Ladd McConkey last year. So it's really interesting to me to pontificate on them trying to sign Keenan Allen. That's the only one that I'm really truly concerned about, because there is just so much love, and he's a Ring of Honor player, and there's so much rapport between he and Justin Herbert that he kind of comes in and throws a monkey wrench in all these plans, because he's probably going to play outside in the two wide receiver sets that they're going to use quite a bit. He's probably going to siphon targets away from the ceiling outcomes of Ladd McConkey and Oronde Gadsden. Quentin Johnston was like wide receiver 4 with him in the lineup last year. So it might be good for Quentin Johnston and just kind of bad for everybody else. So I hope that that's not the case, but at the same time, we can't say with any sort of certainty as they near training camp that they don't bring him back as that stable veteran presence to kind of keep the boat moving forward.
Prediction time. Stephon Diggs signs with the team. Let's say it's the Commanders. The player I think is more likely is going to be Stephon Diggs to get a contract. You're Keenan Allen, though. Let's prediction game theory this. 34 years of age, be it going back to the Chicago Bears. That's how he spoke after being with the Bears. I'm either with the Bears or the Chargers. Kept his options tight. I think he liked the growth that was going to happen in Chicago. Then, of course, going back home to the Chargers, where you spoke to, he's built such an illustrious career. I see Keenan Allen, game theory, sitting on the sidelines. Law of large numbers tells us amongst Brennan Thompson, QJ, Ladd McConkey, Trey Harris, there's going to be some sort of an injury at some point in the season. And this is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. So you start thinking in increments of 18 to 20 plus weeks, where it's the build up to the Super Bowl. It's, hey, I'm playing year by year. Look at what Aaron Donald is doing with trying to come back to the NFL. Will he come back immediately, or will he wait a month, halfway in? You're pacing yourself. You're ramping yourself up, because the objective, meanwhile, we want fantasy football. We're thinking about how this is going to impact. Keenan Allen, while he's playing with his piano keys because he's a good piano player, he's probably thinking about the long-term viability of a Super Bowl run out. So the pace might not be to our calendar where we think, oh, it's going to pick up immediately in training camp. It's going to pick up immediately for week 1. There may be some time later to this. So I think for right now, mark safe from Keenan Allen. And then the Chargers, we're going to get the run out that we want. So that's my prediction. Sounds like your team, he's going to sign Keenan Allen soon. I think he's going to monitor on the sidelines, give the Chargers right of first refusal. He wants to contend. He's got options. He's not just going to sign anywhere per se. Now, Speaking of having options and being a win now team, a team that we're used to being there, who didn't because they had some injuries with Patrick Mahomes. Last year, a 6-11 record for the Kansas City Chiefs. We're used to year in, year out, the Chiefs being perennial Super Bowl contenders. And it's funny enough, third place in their own division. It's a loaded division, Chev, AFC West. 10.5 wins over under Vegas totals. So that's higher than the Broncos and the Chargers. Vegas is expecting the Chiefs to come back. We're hearing a lot more positive buzz about Mahomes for week 1. There's 167 vacated targets, 288 vacated targets. Kenneth Walker, 1,032 vacated air yards for the Chiefs. Of note, players added: Kenneth Walker, Emari Demercado, don't sleep on him. And then they lost Gardner Minshew, Marquise Brown, Isaiah Pacheco went to the Detroit Lions, Robert Tonyan. And then as far as draft capital, Emmett Johnson, round 5, another back to go with Kenneth Walker, Cyrus Allen in round 5, Garrett Nussmeier in round 7. So how are things going to run with Eric Bieniemy now coming back to the Chiefs, Chev?
I think we get some sort of a semblance of a return to the Legion of Zoom. You know, they brought back Tyquan Thornton. He was their primary deep threat. Rashee Rice was doing all the cheap underneath stuff, the quote unquote PPR scam that everybody's gotten so just super condescending about. Like, regardless of how he scores fantasy, he scores 18 fantasy points a game, man. He's clearly capable, and the team feels like it's a plus move to give him the ball. So let's just knock that nonsense out. But for me, it signals a return of them playing to get more over the top, to have more one-play touchdowns, or to borrow a Madden term, or just trying to return to being explosive. So we're hoping that they've completely shored up the O-line. Obviously, Josh Simmons was a huge hit at left tackle. Hopefully with everything that's going on with him, he had to step away for a family thing. I fully believe Mahomes is going to be ready for week 1. And I mean, he's the type of psychopath that absolutely would try to push himself almost to the point of danger to be on the field. Now, the beautiful thing about this is Eric Bieniemy has been behind some of the most historic running back seasons, besides being a historic an awesome collegiate running back and having success in the NFL himself. He was the running back coach for Adrian Peterson's 2,000-yard season. He's gotten the best out of DeAndre Swift after many people thought that DeAndre Swift just could not figure out how to pass protect and or just run straight between the tackles. So I think he returned. This is kind of a familiarity thing where, like, you saw Keenan Allen go to the Bears and that felt weird, and he goes back to the Chargers and has it in it like, oh, this feels right. So I think Eric Bieniemy getting Matt Al-Naguib out of there, or and him going to New York, I think Eric Bieniemy returns a standard of excellence. I mean, the last year that he was with the Chiefs, Mahomes was at 8.1 yards an attempt. I believe his high under Matt Al-Naguib was 7.4. So this is just, to me, a return, signaling a return. And we all know what Patrick Mahomes is. Like, and this is a motivated, out for blood, I'm going to prove to you that I'm still the best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. So this environment with Eric Bieniemy coming back, with the Rashee Rice in a contract year, with them spending big money on Kenneth Walker, all of that signals to me that they're going back to trying to generate explosive plays and then also be able to bludgeon you with the run game.
Yeah, and with Rashee Rice, the hate has gone way too far. All the PPR scam nonsense. Well, they throw him the damn ball all the time. And you know what is talent? Throwing to him in the red zone. His skill set contributes to that. For another player, we would call that a star stud player in fantasy football. So I don't know why we're misattributing those things for Rashee Rice. I think it's solely because he's been in trouble, and there's bias towards that. It's correct to be frustrated with the off-field intersections with law enforcement for Rashee Rice, but the talent on the field, it's night and day. I think he's phenomenal, and I think it's just gotten too in vogue to just say that he's overrated and not really that good of a player. I think that's nonsense. The damn Chiefs think highly of him. What should that tell any of us? Who are we to question Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy and company? Patrick Mahomes, 4,000 passing yard seasons, 2 where he hit 5K. Last year, after he missed the last couple of games, he would have hit another 4,000-yard passing season. Then Travis Kelce, from 2016 to 2023, he was either first or second in fantasy points per game. I think we get a dead cat bounce season with Eric Bieniemy. All the concepts are there. The personnel has not really upgraded so much. Again, that's faith in Rashee Rice. It's a lot of faith in Travis Kelce. So last season, he was fourth in targets, fifth in air yards with 735, Travis Kelce, second in deep targets for tight end, second in routes run at 525. So there's going to be a balance between the 288 vacated carries and will this offense run more through Kenneth Walker? But I see a lot of great things happening, and there's value playing Dynasty for Travis Kelce and then Rashee Rice. And if you want to employ in a startup the youth with a veteran player like Travis Kelce, go and get yourself a Sadiq. Go and get yourself a Stowers. Go and get a Terrence Ferguson and pair them with somebody like Travis Kelce. You give that player time to develop while they're young. Let's go to the Raiders now, Chev. 3-14 last season. Vegas win total over under 5.5 wins. So not a huge bump up. Should be interesting. With only 5.5 wins, I imagine they're trotting out right now. Kirk Cousins is going to start the entirety of the season. I don't buy it one bit. I see week 5, week 6, Fernando Mendoza. But vacated targets, vacated carries, vacated air yards. The vacated air yards, 252. And then you had added players lost. Jalen Nailor at the wide receiver position, who we love from Minnesota, got the bag for himself. Kirk Cousins, Connor Hayward, and then they lost Kenny Pickett. Of course, they take Fernando Mendoza in round 1. But surprisingly enough, Chev, aside from Malik Benson in round 6, and then Mike Washington Jr., the running back that we love from Arkansas, at running back in round 4 behind Ashton Jeanty, we didn't really get much love for the Raiders for the receiving room. Tell us what you expect from Clint Kubiak, Andrew Jonico, and this Raiders offense, shy of not really having much beyond Bowers and Jeanty.
Well, the first thing, the biggest thing is I expect them to run the piss out of the football. So
what is good, guys? If you are a nicotine pouch guy or gal, who's your go-to? Is it Zyn? Is it Rogue? I don't think so, pal. When I need a little giddy up, I pop in a Lucy. What's a Lucy? Glad you asked. It's a premium 100% tobacco-free nicotine pouch made for true pouch connoisseurs. Lucy pouches and Lucy breakers, right here, deliver a long-lasting flavor for a seriously satisfying pouch experience. Now, I'm pretty much a mint guy across the board, as you can see from the examples that I held up there. And my day-to-day is the traditional Lucy pouch, this fella right here. But the breakers, they come out when I want to feel, kind of sexy, if you will, right? These bad boys right here. The breakers, they make it feel like you're about to have a fancy night out where I'm going to throw inhibition to the wind and let the night just have its way with me. For me, they're not the standard, but it's the enhancement. Now, I like to break it with my back teeth. What's your preferred message? Let me know. Lucy pouches have many different strengths, from 4 milligram all the way up to 12 milligram, and have a unique shape that feels great. Lucy is the only pouch that delivers a long-last, on-demand flavor. You can get 20% off with your first order when you buy online at lucy.co with promo code HMA. And if you don't want to wait, check out their store locator and find a Lucy near you and grab it today. Now, here comes the fine print. Lucy products are for adults of legal age, and every customer is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical.
I fully believe that we're in for a special season from Ashton Jeanty. And they spin up on Tyler Linderbaum, gave him the biggest free agent contract for a center. Or excuse me, just the biggest contract for a center in NFL history. Now, does that mean he's the best center? No, it just means that they make more money now than they ever have. But this is going to be a drastic upgrade. So you have you have Andrew Janico, who was the passing game and tight ends coach, coordinator, coming over from Minnesota. You saw TJ Hawkinson have his career renaissance season before getting injured. Andrew Janico was behind that. Now, you have Brock Bowers, who had nearly a 24% target share in 2024 or 2025 in limited action. And he was second in air yards, I believe. So you have proof of concept, Clint Kubiak off of the Shanahan tree, off of his, off of the, is it like a forest at this point of NFL coaches that come from that tree? You've seen what they've been able to do with George Kittle. Well, we're going to get the ceiling outcome for a George Kittle style player because Brock Bowers isn't going to be asked to block in that manner. George Kittle, one of the highest inline rate tight ends. Brock Bowers was the second highest in slot rate among tight ends last year. So you have a guy who does a lot of wide receiver things, and you don't have, as you mentioned, a threat, or not even a threat, but a meaningful. They spent modest money for what you would pay for a wide receiver on Jalen Nailor, and I think he's going to be really good. But I think this lends us an opportunity to get Brock Bowers and get 150 to 160 targets in a team, for a team that's going to run the ball probably more than they throw the ball this year. And we don't have to have a ton of volume as long as a 24% target share is going to a tight end. So whatever Trey McBride just did, I think Brock Bowers could do this year. I think Ashton Jeanty is going to perform really well. I don't know. I don't think this team's going to be very good, but they could be further along the curve because they got Max Crosby back, and he's one of the biggest difference makers in football. So all that being said, the biggest thing that they've upgraded that makes me excited is they brought in Rick Dennison, former Broncos offensive line coach, was the offensive line coach in Minnesota for quite some time. But 7 out of the 10 years that he's been an offensive line coach, he's fostered a top 10 run game. Now, with Jackson Powers-Johnson moving over to guard, with Linderbaum coming in, if they're able to shore this up and get to league average, Ashton Jeanty is going to go crazy. This is going to be incredible. And we're going to see heavy targets to the running back, heavy targets to the tight end. So he could get 90 targets and 275, maybe 300 carries. Oh, he's going to go with curse at 370. Ashton Jeanty's awesome. We should all just enjoy that and stop, trying to find reasons why it's not going to be good. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. We're not going to get a bunch of multiple wide receiver looks. There's not a ton of 11 personnel going on here. We saw that last year. I think that carries over. They're going to be one of the highest rates, if not the highest rate, of 12 personnel because of Michael Mayer. And, he's a really good player in his own right. He's just not a generational talent like Brock Bowers. So all that said, that's kind of what I expect from the Raiders this year. And this is one of the more underrated environments that I want to click the buttons on early in drafts and or even late. Kirk Cousins, you go 0 QB. Kirk Cousins starts 12 games or starts the whole season like Tom Brady wants him to. What does that look like? It's probably pretty good. And he's going to throw the ball. He's going to throw the ball to the running back and the tight end quite a bit. So long soliloquy aside, that's kind of what I have for the Raiders. And I think that I'll cede the floor to you and take back over.
I love it. Jalen Nailor, I think you're going to get an opportunity where he just has a couple game run out and you're going to be able to sell irrationally somewhere in Dynasty. He'll be one of the waiver wire players that we cover early on in the season because he probably won't be drafted in redraft. And he'll have a couple good games and they'll be like, oh, crap, who are the Raiders throwing to? Who are their wide receivers? Much like people are trying to solve the conundrum of the Miami Dolphins, who's going to be their wide receiver one. You're going to get some of that for the Raiders. Be it, though, Chev, great point, and that transitions us to our rankings. We've put in our little playground, Chev, the AFC West rankings. You and I both have Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty at the top, and we love that. As you were talking about, narrow tree for the Raiders. It's going to run through Bowers, run through Jeanty. Funny enough, the lowest over-under total, win total projected by Vegas next year at 5.5 just tells me it's going to be slapdick city as far as shootouts and running the ball back because the defense is going to give up so many points. It's going to be a lot of points to be had in garbage time, which is going to be great for us. And you talk about gambling, it's going to be a great thing to bet on for 2026. So I've got Bowers, Jeanty. The rest of my tier in tier 1, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Omarion, Hampton, Bo Nix. I have 6 players in there. You have 5. After you go Jeanty, you flip-flop with me on Mahomes and Herbert. Then you go Bo Nix. So I've got Hampton in tier 1. You and I are flip-flopped on Herbert and Mahomes. Tell me why you've got Mahomes, Herbert, Bo Nix, 3, 4, and 5 in tier 1.
So to me, this is the cheapest that Patrick Mahomes has been in quite some time. And because of the fact that, we did get a ton of rushing utility, I believe 5.16 points per game from rushing, which was a career high. It's normally around 2.8 to 2.9 points a game for his rushing totals. As a career high, 422 yards, 5 touchdowns. So I think we get the trade-off of him just being a nuke as a passer. Like I genuinely believe that the outcome that we're hoping for Justin Herbert, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be hell-bent on giving us that. And he's set up to do so. And there's not going to be an element of like, hey, is it like, it's his show and that he has a point to prove. So that's kind of why I have it here. And being 30 years old doesn't concern me at all.
And funny enough, I'm flip-flopped of you where I have them both back-to-back, but I've got Justin Herbert being the run-out this year, the quarterback that you want. And funny enough, it's because I envision Justin Herbert having a Patrick Mahomes-like season. So full compliments there to Patrick Mahomes. But I see it running out perfectly, the offensive environment. So a lot more depth pieces than the Kansas City Chiefs. I know we spoke to the confidence in Kelce, the confidence in Rashee Rice, bringing in Kenneth Walker. I think the Chiefs could have afforded a little bit more. And we may see a signing out there that supports that later in the offseason. But right now, all things point to the new trendiness being the Chargers, Mike McDaniel. That's where I'm going to put Justin Herbert just above Patrick Mahomes. That does, for me, it arrears to market where Herbert goes ahead of sometimes Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. Funny enough, 2 guys who were just in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago are kind of being pushed further and further down the pendulum. So I think to your point, Chev, that's where you're saying, hey, this is too low. So I'm there with you, but I've got Herbert just above him. Now in the next tier, second tier, where I have Omarion Hampton in tier 1, and this is kind of how our second year players went because I had Hampton higher, you had Tetaroa, and we flipped them back and forth. You've got Hampton in this one with Ken Walker, Fernando Mendoza, Ladd McConkey. I've got Walker, Mendoza, and McConkey in tier 2. So tell us what puts Hampton in tier 2 here, and between he and Kenneth Walker, what's the difference?
He's just slightly, he's young enough to where it's 2 years makes a slight difference in their outlook to me, just slightly, just because we're not going to have to deal with the age accusations for a little bit longer than we would. He's got Kenneth Walker's on his second contract. I don't knock that, but just we're getting to a point where he'll only have value to certain teams on, in a dynasty build. So that tier goes Omarion Hampton, Kenneth Walker, Fernando Mendoza, Ladd McConkey, and then in scene. So I think these guys are all guys that are going to continue to ascend in value. We're not quite there yet. There's a world where next year all of these guys could potentially be in tier 1, or we just have to kind of break up and have a different but all that to say, it's a slightly different approach, but I think these are all guys that are going to ascend in value. So
I'm right there with you. And I think with Fernando Mendoza, there's that insulation of he's 22 years old, number 1 overall draft pick. So we put him 11 overall. The next tier in tier 3, this is kind of funny enough, I'm actually ahead of you on Rashee Rice, and you're ahead of me on Jaylen Waddle because I go Rice, Waddle, and Gadsden, and your tier 2 is Waddle, Rice, Gadsden, Harvey. So I'll speak a little bit later on why I've got Harvey down lower in another tier. But Chev, what has you commanding and loving Jaylen Waddle over Rashee Rice in 2026?
Well, it's a point that you hit really well earlier, and it's that teams don't lie about what their intentions are with a player when they start giving up draft capital. So that was a positive enough signal for me. That offense is a high octane enough offense and take enough deep shots. Cortland Sutton, I believe, was like second or third in catches of 20 plus yards. In 2025. So Waddle's a hand in glove fit for what this offense is, because he encapsulates everything that you're trying to get from Pat Bryant, from Troy Franklin, from Marvin Mims. You just roll it into a guy like Jaylen Waddle that's got turbo boosters, and we have the multi-year contract security. Obviously, if Rashee Rice was not in his own way, he would probably be in tier 1. But if was a fifth, my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. Whatever you want to say here, it just is what it is. And with Oronde Gadsden, I'm calling my shot. I'm staying staunch. I think that with the way that they're going to utilize multiple tight end sets, that he could be one of the biggest benefactors on a week in, week out basis, because who's a bigger mismatch than the converted wide receiver playing tight end? And then RJ Harvey. I'm not willing. Sean Payton, as I mentioned before, targets a running back at the highest clip in the league over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. Now, I know it's Davis Webb, but I don't think that that's going to go out the window with the type of offensive success they've had over the last few years. So that's kind of why my tier is what it is.
For the Rice Waddle, for me, having Rice over Waddle, but they're back to back, it's simple as I have Patrick Mahomes just ahead of Bo Nix. When it's Sunday, week 3, 7, 10, about 4 o'clock, and I'm watching the game, I am just more excited, enthralled, and expecting of Rashee Rice to print those points more to a guarantee, more of a surety than Jaylen Waddle. There's still a little degree of, we haven't seen it all come together for Jaylen Waddle, and we've seen, so long as he's on the field, Rashee Rice get fed unadulterated number 1 wide receiver. But I'm predicting a big year for Jaylen Waddle. That's where it's just neck and neck, very razor thin margin. I've got Rashee Rice ahead of Jaylen Waddle. In respect to a guy who was tight end 1 for a month straight, Oronde Gadsden, I'm not worried at all about any quote unquote tight end competition out there. I think it's reckless. And meanwhile, though, it's suppressing the price in Dynasty on Oronde Gadsden. But I do have to speak down to my next tier. I've got Xavier Worthy, Quentin Johnston, RJ Harvey, Jonah Coleman in tier 4. For me, Harvey, I still like him. I love him, but I can't put him up there in the Rice, Waddle, Gadsden tier, because they have proven it. They have a good skill set. Harvey, I see circumstance changing for him, where he was a circumstance play, where we got Dobbins, as we spoke to, out of the way, and it benefited Harvey. But then we ran into a wall in the playoffs, and that's where north-south running, RJ Harvey couldn't get the hard yards that the team needed for real NFL. And then that hurts because they brought in Jonah Coleman. I have Jonah Coleman just below RJ Harvey, but I have to acknowledge Harvey's got the edge on him for right now. Harvey's one of those players, though, you don't want to miss out in the event that he keeps running pure fantasy-wise, and we keep getting the utilization in the offense in the pass game run through him out of the backfield. So you need to take it to ride the ride. That's where I do have Harvey respectably in this next tier above Jonah Coleman. But then for you, you've got QJ, Xavier Worthy, and Jonah Coleman. So you and I are flipped on Worthy and Quentin Johnston. So tell me, why do you have Quentin Johnston over Worthy to my Worthy over Quentin Johnston?
I think that all the things that Xavier Worthy is good at, Quentin Johnston is also good at, and he's carved out more of a role and more trust from Justin Herbert than I believe Worthy has with Patrick Mahomes. And I think this is going to be, it's bag season for QJ. So I'm more inclined to believe they're going to do everything to get this man the football and get him paid. Again, harken back to what the viral clip of what Mike McDaniel was telling him. It's clear that he's a part of their plan. It's just whether or not he he actualizes this. So like I said, I've had some aggressive visions about Quentin Johnston. It's come a long way. I'm not fully sold, but I just think that, yeah, this is the opportunity that we've been looking for quite some time for Quentin Johnston.
Next, we have Tier 5, Trey Harris. On an island, you and I both duplicative of each other, enjoy and love Trey Harris, but he's kind of in his own spot because he's special, but he's not quite there. He needs some things to unwrap for him. But the next tier, Travis Kelce, J.K. Dobbins, Courtland Sutton, Justin Jolie, Jalen Nailor. We have that order. Your one flip from me is you have Sutton just above J.K. Dobbins. So tell me, Chev, any good word on Travis Kelce? And why would you have Courtland Sutton over J.K. Dobbins if the expectation is the backfield runs through J.K. Dobbins?
It's a 2-year deal for J.K. Dobbins, but they can get out after this year if he gets injured again. So it's essentially like a 1-year, $8 million deal for J.K. Dobbins. If he goes out and performs, then we're locked and loaded for this year, and it kind of solidifies his year-over-year value while pushing RJ Harvey down. I still think RJ Harvey is going to catch 50 or 60 passes this year, and he has an opportunity to get better. That's why he was in a higher tier. And then with Travis Kelce and Courtland Sutton, it's just Travis Kelce has regressed back to being a normal tight end. He's probably going to finish between tight end 6 and tight end 8 in total points, and then be like a top 8 tight end in points per game. It's just old reliable at this point. There's just not the ceiling yak ability. His athleticism is faded, but his mind's still super sharp. You hear the greats talk about just when you got it all figured out, your body just quits on you. Travis Kelce's body hasn't quit on him. He's got it figured out. He's got one of the best coaches of all time. He's got one of the best quarterbacks of all time. So value-wise, he's here, but production-wise, he's going to be another solid tight end.
If we get just a horde of maybe 6 more touchdowns, a regression in favor for Travis Kelce, I don't see how he can't be the tight end 2 overall and push for challenge to be the tight end 1 overall. It's wild how Eric Bieniemy is going to come through, and we're going to get old boss, same as a new boss, one more year of some Travis Kelce goodness where he's up in that elite tier. I really think he's just one of the screaming values in fantasy football right now. And it's funny because 5 years ago, you'd say, what? Man, this day will never come. Well, that day is here where I have to prognosticate something like that. Very big fan of him. Where I have Dobbins ahead of Sutton is more for the fact that I'm pro Jaylen Waddle. And I'm just so excited, Chev, and invested in this backfield. I love the Denver Broncos backfield. From my plums, I love some Jonah Coleman. But you got me in last year onto RJ Harvey. So I've got Harvey in some spots.
Yes.
I'm not fully out on him. I'm just not, the belief isn't fully there, but I understand the run out where if I'm wrong, I want to have a piece. So spoken to that, J.K. Dobbins, I got to give him the respect. So long as he's getting the rock, he's going to be fine. It's just a matter of, does he get injured? Does he hold up for the entirety of the season? Because if you're tied to Sean Payton and you're getting deference, much like Sean McVay with Kyron Williams, if you're getting the deference, that's all that matters in fantasy football. So a screaming value again for Dobbins, age 27. Chev, I'll read through the last tier that we have and tell me any of these players, they stand out to you for this season. We got Jack Betch, Mike Washington, Keaton Mitchell, Emmett Johnson, David Njoku. Any thoughts on them for 2026?
Who boss? Okay, so I am an unabashed Emmett Johnson fan. He was my RB2 in this class.
Yep.
But also, brother, I love Emari Demercado. Absolutely love Emari Demercado. He's all the things Emmett Johnson is, and we have proof of concept of him being an explosive running back with a great pass catching profile. So I'm a little bit tenuous on the fact that Emmett Johnson could come in and steal touches. I think Emari Demercado, once training camp opens, is going to establish himself as the RB2 and give us what I hoped for with Brashard Smith in that pass catching role. So if you can hear my voice right now, you should just be throwing in or trying to pick up Emari Demercado off waivers. Because if anything happens to Kenneth Walker, he's going to, if they're throwing the ball to the running back the way that they have in the past, he's going to be the guy that pops up out of nowhere that we get into week 2 or week 3, and he's caught 13 or 14 passes, and you look up in your points per game and he's 11 or 12 points per game because he's catching 4 balls a game. So yeah, I'm a little bearish just because I think Emari Demercado is going to have a bigger role than what people think.
And for a health standpoint, pure run out, we love Kenneth Walker, but he really did have the nut run out last season. We're so used to, ankle soreness, DNP on Wednesday, DNP on Thursday, limited practice on Friday, or anything oblique. You see those two out there for Kenneth Walker, and it's just nightmare fuel from Wednesday all the way sometimes through to Sunday. You have to be ready to weather that storm. So I love the play that you made, that you mentioned beyond Emmett Johnson, Emari Demercado. And for the audience out there, like, subscribe, give 5 stars, thumbs up, rate, review. We need it. We love it. And we love having you. But Chev, in our Debbie startup, it's 40 rounds. You're at the turn. You went and double tapped along the way. You had Emari Demercado. So just so you guys know, Chev, he's practicing what he preaches. He's clicking what he's talking. And he got himself some Emari Demercado. So Chev, great show, a lot of fun. And Casey will be back sometime next week. We'd love to have you. FF Dynasty, Coach, Chev, peace.
See ya.